The future of our world is at stake.
You have a mission.
How do I look? Fresh.
On March 8th. Is this normal?
Pretty much.
Go higher. Go further. Go faster.
About to show these boys how we do it.
Captain Marvel.
You know you're glowing, right?
This film contains scenes that may be too intense for younger viewers.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Discussing Comics. I am Kyle Jones, and joining me on this podcast, Mr. Clarence Brown. Clarence, what's going on?
Nothing much, man. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Went to see Captain Marvel yesterday, and I walked out eating crow because that movie was very entertaining, very good.
Oh, wow. This is a surprising reaction, sir.
You think so? Why do you think that?
Well, because you've been a hater from the start. You are a Carol Danvers hater. That's what you are.
So why do you want to say from the start? So before we get into me, what about you? Did you enjoy the movie?
Yeah, I thought it was fun. I felt like it was more in the vein of maybe a Captain America: The First Avenger type of movie, whereas less so, at least in the first half of the movie, less so of these bombastic movies we get now with the latest MCU iterations. So I do feel like it's more in line with maybe some of the earlier movies. Because, again, it is an origin story, so you have to get that established. But the latter half of the movie, the last 2/3 is just bonkers. So,
okay, so why don't we go right into the movie? And before we do that, let me say, if you have not seen Captain Marvel, if you have not seen the Captain Marvel movie that just came out in 2019, put us on pause. Go watch the movie because
Spoilers.
Clarence, let's talk a little bit about Carol Danvers, the character that is now known as Captain Marvel. Now, I know, you gave a little input into my haterade or my dislike for the character, and didn't you just say that I've disliked her from the beginning?
Well, you're probably going to refute that to say, I used to like her back in the day, but in the later iterations, too much woman power.
Okay, so why does it have to be woman power? Why not? Why can't it just be that she was badly written?
That was just a low blow. That was uncalled for. I'm sorry.
No. You don't.
You
really
hate her for you hate her for some reason, and maybe you can explain. I will leave that to you, sir. Too funny. We need to look it up because I know it exists somewhere. We need to dig up the piece of audio. Cal is bashing Carol and maybe put it somewhere in this podcast. It would be great.
I probably could do that. And I don't mind doing that. I said at the very beginning I was eating crow. Did I not? Did I not?
Yeah, you did.
So I'm going to play that right now.
Previously.
I am doing it. I'm going to play it right now and we will be right back. Let me, for all clarity and for all disclosure, say I do not like Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. I want to be as clear about that going into this and saying, yes, these questions will be biased and they will be one-sided because I do not like Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel.
Oh, God.
So for all of these years, even up until the last 5 years, Carol Danvers, for the most part, was known as Miss Marvel. And I had no problem with her. During the time she was in space with the X-Men, they were attacked by aliens, and I think they did something to her, and it mutated her powers, and she became a character called Binary. But
where did the hate come from?
So here's where the hate came from.
We have to know this.
It was almost as if Marvel decided to make you Captain Marvel. In other words, just like they're doing with She-Hulk, giving her the main Hulk book, Marvel, in my opinion, said, well, let's strip everything likable about this character and make her Captain Marvel, but she can't be likable. She's got to be, fill in the blank of a word there. And And it wasn't long before I was like, okay, I don't like you now. So like I said, I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong. So don't ever let it be said that I don't have a problem admitting I'm wrong. I took my words, I played my words, and I'm saying right now in 2019, I was wrong.
A new, kinder, gentler Cal Jones.
Yes. Okay. But now I have to give you the point of, yeah, I was not kind to the characters in the last couple of years. And I will be the first to say I ate crow. And, I said that at the beginning, that I was wrong, that I really thought this movie was going to be bad. But having said that, I want to get your opinion on a question that I'm going to pose. And my question is, and for anyone listening, if you disagree or agree with my question, please send in your comments. Let me know how right or how wrong I am in this. But I spent the afternoon, or part of this afternoon, going back and reading some of Carol's original stories, like when she first appeared, when she first became Miss Marvel, and even up to the point to where she became Captain Marvel. And my question to you is, do you think that, in psychoanalyzing me here for a second, do you think that I thought that when the writers decided to give her the captain title, finally call herself Captain Marvel, that they shifted the character away from what it had been into this hard-nosed, do what I say, and my way or the highway? What do you think?
I can't presume to think how you feel on it. Maybe you should just tell us.
All right. So what do you think? What do you think from what I just said? Do you think?
Yeah. Pose that same question to me, because I was really kind of a little confused. Sorry.
No. If when the character became Captain Marvel in the comics, do you think that the writers, based on hearing me rant and rave, do you think the writers may have taken, and this is kind of a loaded question, but do you think the writers may have taken the position that to be Captain Marvel, we must make her, do what I say, not as I do, my way or the highway kind of mentality?
Okay, well, I'll table that with the notion that I've never read any of the Captain Marvel
comics.
Right,
but listening to me rant and rave.
Well, I mean, I'm not even going to pontificate on what you may think. But what I'm going to say is, from my point of view of reading the Civil War comics, I think that maybe people not just you, but people in general may have the impression that she was maybe a little bit too hard-nosed. Maybe she was on the wrong side of the war. You had her versus Iron Man. Right. So that whole thing was pitted. And, I'm just taking this from my point of view. It's pitted for us as viewers and some of us readers to take sides in this war, as much like we did in the Civil War movie, not too long ago. So I don't know if that's geared more toward where you feel on that side of the war versus the position she had to take in order to be a leader and being on that side. Now, okay. Being a leader does come with a lot of baggage. And a lot of people are just not going to like you, depending on what side they believe on. A lot of people are just not going to like you. So I don't know if your opinion personally is colored on that, but that is kind of the view I get from it, from maybe the outside looking in.
Very good point, and very good painting of the picture of what they may have done. And so here's my thought. I liked Carol as an Avenger. I liked her as Binary. I liked her as Miss Marvel. And you're right. It's interesting that about the same time that she became Captain Marvel also was about the same time that Civil War came out, and they wanted to do Civil War 2, And in doing that, when they did that and placed her against Iron Man, I just thought it was so out of character for her. And maybe that's where I got my opinion and formed my quote unquote haterade for her, because it was just so not Carol, and it made me totally dislike the character.
Yeah, and I think when you look at, I'm gonna base this opinion on the Civil War movie. I think Iron Man was that unliked character because, of course, Cap was on the other side,
Agreed.
if I remember correctly. So Iron Man very much were playing on a lot of the things that you may hate. He had to kind of be the bad guy in that situation. But I think maybe the huge difference is in that situation, I think Iron Man's views in that struggle felt more in line with what the character was already.
Agreed. And, I have to say again, this character comes from a military background, so you have to kind of understand that. I'm just glad that Marvel seemingly listened to fans for a change and righted the ship of the character, because in the last, I would say 18 to 24 months, the Carol that I liked for decades seems to have resurfaced, and this Carol that was around Civil War and a couple of years after is just kind of faded in the background, because I think Marvel had a wake-up call and maybe realized, hey, we're alienating fans that we're wanting to come watch our movie.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Was that all in respect to framing for the movie, or was that a true direction that they really wanted to take the character in? I suspect that it was probably in framing for the movie to make her more relatable. And, if anybody's an a-hole, whether it's a woman or a dude, we're probably not going to like it too much. So,
correct. And totally good point. Totally good point. So I want to briefly, before we get into the movie, I want to tell just a few facts about Carol Danvers. She was created by Roy Thomas and Gene Colan. She first appeared in Marvel Superheroes number 13. This is in 1968. She became Miss Marvel and was first called Miss Marvel in Miss Marvel number 1. That is in 1977. She later took the code name Binary in Uncanny X-Men number 164. That was in 1982. And she remained Binary until changing her name to Warbird in the Avengers second volume or third volume, not sure which, number 4 in 1998. She resumed the Miss Marvel ID until she took the Captain Marvel identity in July of 2012.
So can I add another fact on there real quick?
Sure, go for it.
First female-led MCU film.
Absolutely.
So all of that history you just framed there, that, she's went from these various names as a character. As far as the MCU is concerned, why do you think it's taken so long to get a female-led Marvel film?
Very good question. I don't know if I really don't know. I mean, I'm sitting here trying to answer that question, and I think that Marvel went back to its original playground of characters, and the only other strong character that I know of from the original 60s playground that would be other than Carol, other than, we've seen Jan or we've seen a Wasp, we've seen Black Widow. The only other character, we've seen Scarlet Witch, but the only other characters that I could think of in that era were not owned by Marvel. That would be like Sue Storm. That would be, Jean Grey or Storm or whomever. And they didn't own those characters.
Do you think they were looking at Wonder Woman and said, okay, we need somebody just as powerful. We need our version of Wonder Woman to have a movie and capture that fan base as well? Do you think that was kind of their thinking with this? Or it was just time?
I would think it's 25% time, and brutally honest, I think 75% is Disney saying we need to cash in on this too. I mean, just being honest. What do you think?
I don't know. I thought maybe I would raise that time factor much higher on my side. But seeing at the success of Wonder Woman, it was, even though the MCU as a whole is pretty much endured by a lot of people, I think it was still time to bring on a female hero to hold their own in this universe. Of course, people have been asking that of Black Widow for many years now, but I still don't know when that's going to happen. I think they've said it's going to happen, but still, it's been time for it in my personal opinion. And, I think they did it justice.
And so let me ask you then a question. Do you think that the Black Widow would have as much appeal to a broader audience as would Captain Marvel?
Oh, how dare you? How
I mean,
dare
seriously, honestly, what do you think?
I love Scarlett Johansson, and I will watch anything that she's in. But I will say that, part of the appeal to here, I did relate Captain Marvel to Wonder Woman, is that this character is probably the most powerful character we've seen on screen to date on the hero side. So yeah, I think that maybe Black Widow doesn't necessarily have that ability as far as powers, because she doesn't have any, maybe to have that same blockbuster appeal. I could see her leading a movie maybe if we included a few more heroes in there, sort of like they did with the first Iron Man films.
Correct. And look at the second Captain America. I mean, my goodness, the Civil War movie was not, Avengers Civil War. It was Captain America Civil War.
Yeah. And I could definitely see a team up as long as they, still put her as like the main draw, but definitely say, okay, we're going to have this character appear and this character appear. And it's more going to be like another team up movie.
Right. And as far as powers go, I mean, the effects, everything, was stunning, spot on. And, I know we're getting into our review in just a moment, but Brie Larson, I think, did an excellent job of helping to restore that Carol that I loved as a character. So kudos to her. So.
Yeah, a lot of the early criticism I was hearing about this film is that maybe Brie Larson's performance, especially from the trailers, was rather muted, because the trailer was a bunch of series of one-liners, and maybe those can come off as bad acting. But to me, her performance was a little bit more methodical than major 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 memory issues to give. I don't want to give it too much.
PTSD.
Yeah. Which those are things that you kind of have to be kind of methodical about in your approach to kind of show how she's feeling. And I think they do a good job of that. And maybe the trailers just didn't show that in a great light,
I agree with you 1,000,000%. I mean, I saw a very rigid character, and maybe once we get more exposure to her in the Avengers Endgame, I don't know. I think she played it very well, considering where we pick up in Carol's life at the point that we pick up in Carol's life.
Yeah, because we see where she's fun, and then she's kind of muted because trying to go through these moments of remembering her past, and then by the end she's fun again. So she was very much different throughout the film. But I love that.
So let's just kind of break down the film and go through the film as the story real quick. But I'm curious as to what you thought of before the movie even starts, where we see the usual Marvel logo unveiling all these, what we've been seeing, images of the Avengers and different characters, but we see Stan Lee instead. What did you think?
Yes, that was wonderful. That was just wonderful. In the normal intro, as you just explained, where they kind of showed the different characters at the very beginning, up until they showed the Marvel logo, they put Stan in each of those instances, showing, vignettes of his life. And if that didn't have you on board, I mean, nothing will, because it was just, that first 10 seconds was just like, wow.
Yes. And then after, it does its usual, the Marvel logo, and then it is, with the red background, then the background goes black. And I thought that was a nice tribute as well. With that just the visual of that was kind of like made your hair on your arm stand up.
Yes, certainly. And I wonder if they're going to go with that for a while, or will they just, flop back to the next movie? My
gut is they will probably go back to the original. This is the first movie they've released since his death. So my gut tells me it will probably go back, but they may do it again in Avengers, or they may do do any, but there's only the Avengers is the only other one for this year that's truly Marvel, right?
I think so. But I wonder, after Carrie Fisher passed, during I guess in the late post-production of The Last Jedi, did we see a tribute to her in the movie?
I don't think we did we?
I don't remember.
I don't think we did either. I mean, I don't think we did.
So we may see that in an upcoming movie, possibly, because I don't remember seeing it.
I don't remember seeing it either. I just remember, thinking, oh, well, this may be the last time I'll see Princess Leia and et cetera and so forth. But no, I don't think we did. Maybe. So we see, Carol or, her other Kree, quote unquote, name, and we see her with a character that's training her. Jude Law's character, Jan Rogg, R-O-G-G, Jan Rogg. What did you think of him when you first saw him?
You know what? Well, this movie does a great job of putting up a certain sense of subterfuge. Things are certainly not as they seem from the onset of this movie. Agreed. As far as his character goes, I thought he was a pretty good leader at first. I thought he was a strong leader. I haven't seen a whole bunch of things that Jude Law is in, but I really do like his performance. I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, I did too. And I thought at first that he was, before they named him, I thought that he was going to be Marvel.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, for like a good 30 minutes probably, I was pretty sure that this dude is, because he's training her, et cetera, and so forth. I really thought that he was going to be Marvel.
Yeah, and at some point we have to talk about that twist of who is Marvel, which I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, that was going to be my next question. So why don't we just get into it? We see that there is Marvel, but not Marvel as we know him, quote unquote. What did you think of Marvel as the movie presented her?
So this goes back to maybe one of the first 10 episodes we did back in the day on discussing Who, was all about, characters, gender, and things like that. And I think one of the things we brought up was, would switching a character's gender or race really impact the story? And I have to admit, this is one of the first cases where, we've talked about Captain Marvel before. We did a YouTube video, which can be found at youtube.com/discussing network, where we talk about, Carol Danvers and in turn, Captain Marvel. I was just kind of shocked that they did it. I don't know if I'm mad about it, but it just felt weird to me. And maybe it's less so that it's a woman and more so that I expected Captain Marvel to be this, the superhero stature, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And even if it was a woman and she had this superhero stature, I probably would have been okay with it. But it seems like the actor, and I forget the actor's name, that they chose to be in that role just I didn't feel it.
Yeah. Annette Bening, she's, a famous actress, and and forgive me for anyone listening because I cannot right at this moment name anything that she's been in after I've said she's a famous actress. Having said that, I'm 100% in agreement with you. I did not like the fact that they took a character that I didn't see a reason, I guess is what I'm trying to say, for it to be presented or the character to be presented as a woman. It just didn't have I didn't see a reason for it.
Yes, it really didn't have. I mean, it didn't impact her in the story, but I don't know. Do you need a reason to change? Do you need it? And I'm thinking about Perry from the Superman movie. What's the paper guy name?
Yeah, Perry White.
Yeah, Perry White. I'm thinking of him. He's Lawrence Fishburne now. Did they really have a reason to do it? No, but it didn't really hurt the character. And I kind of feel the same thing here. But again, to me, it doesn't matter if it's a woman or a man. I'm expecting that character to be somebody like somebody that's more of a superheroic stature. Maybe I don't think I'm making.
So I see I think I see where you're going is it's not necessarily so much that the character was presented as a woman. It is more so as in Captain Marvel has become this almost mystical, here's the Captain Marvel of Marvel Comics that was this great hero that came and protected the Earth, and he was Kree, and then he dies of cancer, etc., and so forth. Spoiler. But and then there's these other Captain Marvels that come after. But you really didn't even get any of that in the movie.
Yeah. And it seems like at some point they could have framed it in a sense where we could have had a whole movie somewhere 5 years down the line of just Captain Marvel. But the way they did it, that won't happen.
And could it have been that they might have been trying? I just thought about this. Maybe they did that in an origin movie. You didn't want Captain Marvel to, say, crash on Earth and she get caught in an explosion when he crashes and get some of his powers, because that
it's a lot to get through.
And it's also a lot like Green Lantern, because that's how Hal Jordan got, there was a Green Lantern that crashed to Earth, and he gets the ring after the alien crashes and becomes Green Lantern. Maybe they were trying to shy away from, that type of comparison, maybe.
Yeah. And I will say that it's not that I didn't like how she transferred or how Carol Danvers got the powers, but it's being this mug book reader. From what I've heard from you and from the little I've read, it's not what I was expecting. That's all.
Got you. Well, one thing that I wasn't expecting, and I kept thinking in the back of my mind, that name, Wendy Lawson, where have I heard that? Where have I heard that? That sounds so familiar. And I hadn't heard Wendy Lawson, but what I had heard was Walter Lawson, and that was an alias that Marvel, when he first arrived on Earth, used to gain access into Project Pegasus to find out what happened to this Kree Sentry. And I thought that was cool, that not only did you change the gender of the of the character, of course, then you change the gender of an alias that the character used.
So Project Pegasus was a real thing.
Yes. There is a facility called Project Pegasus on in the Marvel universe.
Awesome.
So let's talk for a second about the quote unquote again enemies, the Skrulls. What did you think of the Skrulls?
They sold me. They sold me. They approached it from the point of view of a race of people that are being oppressed by a much superior race. And it very much goes in line with you believe what you're told, and Carol, being somebody who lost her memory, she drank the Kool-Aid. She believed what she was told until she maybe got a bigger picture of what was going on. And, I was along for the ride as an audience member, because I was like, these guys are bad. They can be anybody. They can be around any corner and you wouldn't know it. But that being said, just because a particular race of beings has a ability that might be greater in some senses than yours, doesn't mean they're bad people. And if I'm related to Star Trek, I'm related to the Betazoids. They can read minds. They can freaking read minds. But they're like a part of the functioning society. And in some cases, you might think, oh, if you can read my mind, we need to lock them up and throw away the key, So I loved how in this story we have this group of people that from the face of it can seem to be a very threatening race or species of people. But, once you see the larger picture, that turns out not to be the case. What did you think?
See, this actually is my favorite part of the movie, because I went into this seemingly, I believe, like you did, thinking, okay, the Skrulls are the bad guys. They are the villains of the story because they're Skrulls. And that is, as you just, so perfectly put, that is judging a group of Skrulls by everything that you know of, so I'm being, judgmental and I'm being closed-minded and assuming that because some Skrulls are bad, all Skrulls are bad. And I loved how they turned it on the audience and made you think, oh, maybe the other guys are the bad guy.
Yeah, and it's so funny because you're approaching it from the sense of history that you have knowing about the Skrulls, but I'm approaching it merely from the movie. And still, I think the same thing you think. I think these are bad guys, but they somehow managed to turn it around. And, I have to give my hats off to the marketing people on this, because from any of the marketing material, you think these guys are the bad guys. And,
absolutely.
Excellent job on that point. And to see it unfold in the movie the way it did, just hats off to the writers and even the marketing people on that one.
Yes. And I think it's a very clever trick of marketing where you took that assumption, because these are some characters, or the race of characters that have been around since, the first few issues of, I think it was Fantastic Four #2 that they first appeared. And that was back in 1961. So they have been in the comic lore since the very beginning, literally, of Marvel Comics. And they've very, very, and I mean very rarely, have ever been characterized as good. I mean, like only a handful have been good. And the fact that you use that to make that assumption, hands down, brilliant.
Yeah. And maybe on a slightly related topic, the Kree, the look of the Kree, some of the Kree are blue and some are white. I think that's the distinction. Am I right on that?
You are very
correct?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. In the movie, they took no time to explain that. I knew that because I knew it from reading a piece, in talking with you. I knew that, but I would think the person who knows nothing about the Kree as a race would be like, what's going on? These blue people are walking around with the white or the white Kree as well. And nobody's saying anything, and they just look like humans to me, So,
yeah, and it's interesting, that they also don't go into why the Kree are trying to create this big empire, and the reason for that is they have reached their evolutionary plateau. In other words, they have manipulated their genetics to such an extent that they can't, grow anymore. So that being said, that's one of the reasons that they are trying to create this empire, is to maybe help jumpstart their evolution again.
But wasn't that part of the impetus of creating Inhumans? Am I?
Yes, absolutely.
So why do you think we get zero mention of the Inhumans in this film? Maybe just a throwaway line would have been good enough for me, but they don't say anything about them.
I think Marvel would like a Betazoid to come in and erase our minds that the Inhumans ever happened.
Well, are you talking about the show or the comic book or it all?
Since the movie came out, there has been a miniseries entitled Death of the Inhumans. So I think they are kind of just being eradicated from Marvel existence to some degree.
I know that makes you happy.
Yeah. Hey, as long as we get X-Men in the true Marvel universe, I'll be happy.
Hey, there's only one thing that Cal Jones hates more than Carol Danvers, and that's the Inhumans. And Lex Luthor and Batman v Superman.
Thank you, because you knew where I was going. So one thing I messaged you during the movie, and I said, if they show Monica Rambeau, I will be happy. So what did you think of Maria, the friend of Carol?
I thought it was well played. I loved how they were best friends, and you can see possibly somewhere down the future, somewhere, the connection to get the character you're looking for. So I love the way she was introduced. Just part of the family is what she said in the movie. Carol is part of her family. And, I just thought it was well played across the board. Monica is the little girl, right? If I'm saying that correct.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that was just such a beautiful relationship of how she's miss her her Aunt Carol. I forget if she called her aunt, but
I totally love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well done keeping her jacket and all this stuff for all these many years. Yeah, just beautifully done. Kudos, Marvel.
Yes, and I went back and I looked up Monica's mother's name, and it is Maria, so they were very accurate in that. Now, tying her into Carol's mythos or her backstory, there isn't that tie, there isn't that connection in the comics. That being said, I'm perfectly fine with it, because if this was 1990 and we're 20-something years later, then guess what? Monica should be grown by now. So, hopefully she can somehow get some powers of her own.
Yes. Yeah, she's grown now in the current timeline. That's cool.
Yes.
So, and apparently Carol doesn't age now.
Yes. Did you notice? I was curious if you noticed that.
Yeah. I didn't know if there was a comic book thing or maybe, I don't know.
I don't know either. But let me ask you this. Did you notice, speaking of Monica, 1 second before we move on, did you notice when she had Monica redesign her costume and change the colors using something on her arm, did it go to a black and white costume for just a second, or am I remembering correctly?
So this is a part that I wouldn't catch. So I was wondering while they were doing that, like, were all of those iterations they showing real costumes Captain Marvel has had in the past? I wasn't sure, because it seems like it had like one that was real neon looking. It seems like I've seen it before somewhere.
No, that was, I think, just a joke.
Just a joke?
I think the one right before or right after the neon was a black and white version.
I think there was a black and white one in there, but it didn't look like what I've known from the one you're talking about. So maybe it was a little bit different.
Yeah. I think, the costume itself has only been worn by Carol, and in this current, costume that she's wearing, that she's, in the, but the color variation, if it was the black and white, then it's definitely, Monica's costume. If it's, I think there was a navy and blue, then that would have, and maybe navy and blue is the same color. Navy and yellow and red, and that would have been Miss Marvel's costume. And there's been like 3 or 4 other Captain Marvel. So I'm betting it was, a tip of the hat to all of them.
Yeah. So while we're talking about the suit, can I ask you about something real quick?
Sure, absolutely.
So there's a point where Carol lands on Earth, blockbuster, mind you, and she wants to communicate back with her Kree group friends. What's the name of the group?
I don't remember. Let's just Stargate or Starcade or something like that.
Yeah. So she wants to communicate back, and she has to somehow use a landline phone with her suit in order to make the communication work. That didn't make any sense to me, because even from the point from later in the movie, we see, what's the leader's name again? I forget.
Young Ra.
We see him use his suit without any other connection to communicate with his ship. So maybe it could have. So I don't know.
That was a little far-fetched to me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's one of my only other gripes with the movie. My only other gripe is the pacing felt off. I feel like while I loved all the part where they were in Louisiana getting to know the family, I feel like the pacing for that part felt off with the rest of the movie.
I felt the first 30 to 45 minutes maybe felt a little bit dragging. That first third of the movie. Something about the pacing just felt a little like I wanted it to pick up a little bit. I wanted, a little more, even though there were a lot of action scenes there, I just wanted a little more, and I don't know what more, is, but I just wanted more,
Yeah. So what do you know about the Great Intelligence?
So interesting that you called it that, because I keep calling it that. And I'm wondering if, since this came about around the same time that Doctor Who was doing the Great Intelligence, and I'm just going to call it what it is because that's what Stan did and he was great for. He took an idea that he may have seen or heard about on television and came up with, they had the Great Intelligence. I'm going to have the Supreme Intelligence.
Oh, it's a Supreme Intelligence.
So it's funny that you said that, because I was going to ask you in reverse, do you think the Supreme Intelligence was tied to the Great Intelligence? So I'm glad you said it that way.
Yeah, it's funny because, I'm relating everything back to Star Trek, but Section 31 is, as John mentioned in a previous podcast, is somehow driven by some computer system, which I always find it funny when you have a civilization of people that are being driven and steered by a computer system that is kind of telling them how to do what. Now, I don't know the origin of the Supreme Intelligence. Maybe you have some more information on that. But it seems very weird for a nation for a group of people that are involved as much as the Kree to be depending on a computer-based thing to run their society. So
my understanding of the Supreme Intelligence is, yes, it is a quote-unquote computer, but it is an organic type computer. Basically, it is an uploading or a combination of all the minds of the Kree's greatest warriors, scientists, generals, etc.
Oh, God.
And so they just so you die. And remember, there is a line I think that Jan Rog makes that says something like, well, if this doesn't happen, I will, become one with the something, and meaning he would be uploaded to be part of the Supreme Intelligence.
Wow. Interesting stuff.
Yes. And I was hoping that they would show the Supreme Intelligence not as, a mental image of someone else, but as I call it, the Mr. Potato Head, a green Mr. Potato Head in a jar.
Is that how it is in the book?
Yeah, that's what it looks like, is a green Mr. Potato Head in a jar.
They made the right decision.
Yeah, because it's a big, huge green potato head in a jar.
Yeah, that would have been a hard sell.
But you said I may have some more information. I actually do. The Supreme Intelligence first appeared in Fantastic Four number 65, and that was in 1967. So let me ask you, what did you think of the revelation about Carol's powers, or the levels of Carol's powers?
You know what? Kudos to these guys again for, we already thought from the first 2/3 of the movie that she was just as powerful as ever. But when you find out they have been cramping her style, so to speak, they have been dampening her powers. And oh my God, once the beast is unleashed, it's just bonkers. It's unfreaking real, man. It's on a level of beyond anything we've seen. Maybe Thor's close on the hero side.
I would say she's more powerful than Thor, to be honest with you. I really think that.
Yeah, it's just freaking crazy, man. I never imagined she would be that powerful. To me, I don't know. I just want to see how they use that when we start to integrate her back in with what's going on with the other characters, Yes.
And I liked the fact that they misdirected you, and just as Carol was thinking, oh, well, this thing that's attached to my head is what's giving me my powers. I was thinking that the whole time until I start sitting there going, that doesn't really make sense, because her powers are a part of her. And then you get to the realization that no, that's actually a dampener that they have on her.
Did you think it was giving her powers?
Yes, I really did. I really believed that part.
I did not get that. Did they say that in the movie?
No. Well, they kept saying what we give, we can take away.
Yeah. Oh man, I did not think that at all, man. I was just thinking it was a communications device at first, but then I didn't see it on anybody but her. But I didn't think it was dampening her powers, but by the same token, I didn't think it was giving her powers either.
Well, when they kept saying, you know, that she had been taken to Hala, and after this explosion or this crash, you know, I'm thinking at the beginning, well, she was so injured, and this is sort of like the Bionic Woman from the 70s. You know, we rebuilt her and made her stronger. And I thought that this is how they were going to represent Carol's powers, was they implanted some device in her that gave her the powers.
Interesting.
But I did absolutely love seeing her reach an almost binary form that she had when she was floating and glowing and all that. If they would have just made her skin red, that would have looked totally like binary, and I would have been happy. So any other takeaways? Because I have one, but any other takeaways of things that you really, really liked? I also want to talk about our friend Nick Fury.
Yeah, that was going to be my thing. I'm like, you didn't mention Nick Fury the whole time. And it's Fury. It's Fury. It's Fury.
Excuse me, Fury.
Yeah, but good old Samuel L. Jackson with the de-aging process, which I don't think the computer side of the de-aging is as extreme as we may think it is, because I saw some behind the scenes footage where he is actually wearing a toupee, and I guess makeup as well. So maybe the de-aging part as far as CG is a little more minimal than we may think, because makeup can go a long way if you really think about it. But that being said, seeing a 90s Nick Fury, portrayed in this film, I just thought it was so much fun. So much fun.
Oh, yes, he was brilliant.
Yeah,
he was totally brilliant.
Yeah, we see he works at S.H.I.E.L.D. and he is, of course, we're having this alien threat, and he's investigating along with Coulson, which is a rookie. Good job, Clark Gregg. You were awesome. His de-aging also looked fantastic. But we see these two guys come in and work with Carol throughout the film. Sam Jackson was just Sam Jackson. He was freaking awesome, funny. Him and Goose were freaking fantastic together. That's the duo of 2019.
Yes.
Nick
I am
Fury
so glad
Goose.
they had the cat instead of having more Coulson. You know, no offense to Coulson, but I am so glad, because you take this every time you've seen Nick Fury, and he's just totally a bad A every time you see him. And here, kitty, come here to me, kitty, 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 kitty. That was so cool.
Well, not only that, we get to see more of the origins of Nick Fury. He has a semi moment in this film where he talks about his roots, where he came from, and what he did to get into S.H.I.E.L.D. And then not only that, by the end of the film, we see where Nick Fury is starting the Avengers initiative based on the call or the tag of Carol Danvers,
which
jet.
I thought was cool.
Is that real or just made up for the film?
No, that's made up.
But still awesome.
Still awesome. Totally cool. Totally awesome.
And we also get the preview seeing why Coulson and Fury are so close, because there's a moment in the film where Coulson makes a judgment call in that gray area to be like, you know what? I think Fury's actually right. I'm going to let him go, you know? So we see why they are so endured to each other throughout the rest of the movies.
So you mentioned the cat. So at what point did you start to think the cat was more than a cat?
No, they say it from the beginning, I think. So I pretty much knew it from the beginning. I think they say it at the first time he's on screen.
I think the first time he comes in contact with a Skrull. Because the Skrull runs from him.
Yes. I knew there was something different about the cat. I wish he wasn't as, what is he? What is
Flarkin or something?
Flarkin? That's just disgusting. He should stay a cat.
Yeah, but it's still cool though.
Yeah, it was cool.
So my other thing that I wanted to mention that may I give a potential spoiler that they may have given us with a comment that Fury made in Captain Marvel.
A spoiler for what? The Endgame?
Or for Nick Fury in general.
Sure, go for it.
So I read earlier today that someone has speculated that Nick Fury that we've seen recently, and maybe even who dusted away in Infinity War, was actually a Skrull.
No. No.
And do you want to know why?
Sure, go for it.
He made a reference to eating his bread and how he eats his bread and has to cut it a certain way. And I think it is the Ultron movie, The Age of Ultron or whatever. He's eating a sandwich and he's cutting his bread differently.
Wow, I really hope that's not it.
I do too, but if it is, that was a good small throwaway.
Well, that wouldn't be any worse than him losing his eye because the cat scratched it.
Yes.
I don't get that. Maybe the cat has poison in his claws or something. Maybe. I don't.
Yeah. But maybe the cat's claws are a lot more strong or a lot stronger than, what we think they are, because I didn't really think the cat scratched him that hard.
Yeah, that's the one thing I wish they would have changed, because him and the cat are friends. They're friends.
Yeah.
They have this, bond between each other, and then he takes his eye out. What?
Yeah, I didn't get that, but cool nonetheless. But no, I didn't get that.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out real quick to Ben Mendelsohn, Talos, the main shapeshifter guy that was the head of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yep.
Is that? I think I'm getting his name right.
You got it.
He was also Krennic in the Rogue One movie, and also a character, I forget his name, in Bloodlines. So I've seen this guy in a lot of stuff. Anything I see him in, he's freaking fantastic. So it was just a joy to see him in this movie. So him getting those the Star Wars as well as the Marvel ties here. So hopefully we'll see him again sometime.
Cool. Well, I want to give a shout out to Carol Danvers, and in doing so, if it weren't for Carol Danvers, the fans of the 90s cartoon, the X-Men cartoon, who loved Rogue flying around and hitting people and doing all the stuff that Rogue did in the cartoon and fell in love with X-Men for a generation, that Rogue that we saw, those powers that she had, would not have been possible without Carol Danvers.
Certainly.
And the fact that Carol Danvers also lived in her head for, a good 10 or 15 years of my reading the X-Men, which was kind of cool because Carol could take over Rogue at any point and, switch places with Rogue. So that was kind of cool. So with that being said, I give a shout out to Carol Danvers. So woohoo.
Yeah. And also I mentioned, like, in the film, there's a moment, and if I get who it was, it may have been what's his name? Jude Law's character. He either made an insult to her or something happened and she like goes through her memories, and it goes through various points in her memories. And I think they showed this in one of the trailers too, where she keeps getting back up,
Yes.
And having these things happen, and she keeps getting back up through all of the turmoil. And I just thought this a wonderfully strong and powerful message, not only to women, but to just anybody that's watching the film who's going through something. And she's able to, in her humanity, pull through whatever's going on and get back up and face the challenge. So I just love that in the film as well.
Likewise. And the other thing that I also loved, there is a scene where he is still trying so hard to keep that tether or keep that, little bit of control, and says, oh, well, prove to me that you are whatever, that you can do this. Or
fisticuffs. Let's go to fisticuffs.
Yeah.
Let's battle us like some men.
And then she like blast him, and she was like, I don't owe anything. I don't explain myself or whatever it was, but it was like,
why do I have to play by your rules when you're a freaking a-hole?
Yes, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It's just wonderful, man. Wonderful.
So Clarence, if you were to give this movie a rating on a scale of 1, you know what? I'll even go 1 to 10. What would you give it?
Definitely a 5, man. Definitely 5. I think when you look in the scope of MCU movies that we've had, it's undeniably a fact that you have to put this, maybe not a fact. Oh, you might have to cut this out. Sorry.
Okay, keep going.
So when you put this movie on the scale of anything that we've had so far in the MCU, I think you just have to put it up there, man. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. Just a must-see movie for anyone who's interested in the MCU. Now, what I'm interested in, I'm sure we'll get more of it possibly when we do see Endgame. How much will this actually play into the next Marvel movie, Avengers Endgame? So I'm interested to see those ties, but on its own merits, I think it's just a must watch for anyone.
Okay, I will give you that. I will say that this helped restore my like for Carol Danvers, so I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 for that. But if we're going also to a 10, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10, and I was almost to give it a 9 out of 10, but I'm giving it an extra point because it didn't fall into the trap of, well, it's a woman and she has to have a love interest or somebody to come save her. There was no love interest or even hinted to in this story. And it just was about a character that stood on her own, and kudos for Marvel for doing so.
Yeah, and also you have to think this is maybe one of the first origin movies we've gotten in a while that I can really think of. So just on that fact, we're getting this so late in the game, we're getting yet another origin movie. And usually those aren't that great. So the fact that, we've getting all this in addition to it being an origin movie for this character, I think it's just fantastic.
Yep, I agree, and I'm glad that it's doing well in the theaters. We were supposed to have Megan McGee back on with us to record while you and I were talking, but the one that she wanted to go see, she's having to literally be in the theaters right now because where she lives, all of the showtimes were sold out. So she's actually watching the movie even as we speak. So I can't wait to talk to her to see, just to get another point of view of what she thought of the movie. And where might else we find a continuingly kind Clarence Brown other than discussing comics?
We also do a Star Trek podcast called Discussing Trek, where the Who Story himself is on there with us, as well as 3 other guys who we love, 3 other hosts. I would suggest either going to discussingtrek.com to read the articles or subscribe to the podcast. Or if you just like reading, we are also on Medium, which can be found at medium.com/discussingnetwork.
Good deal. And for anyone listening, you can also check us out if you're a Doctor Who fan or are interested in Doctor Who. You can check out Clarence and I along with our other co-host, Mr. Lee Shackelford. You can find us at Discussing Who, and that is at discussingwho.com. So Clarence, always, I had fun. I ate crow. I'm saying I love Captain Marvel, and I'm talking about Carol Danvers. So thank you for joining me again. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, man. Good to be on.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening, thank you for joining us. Let us know what you thought about Captain Marvel. Send us some feedback. We will play it on the show. And for that, and as for now, we are out of here. You've been listening to the Discussing Network. Find out more at discussingnetwork.com.